We all see it in elite sports, right? Teams spend just insane amounts of money for the tiniest advantage. But what happens when all that cash, all that talent, all that fancy tech still doesn't get you the win? Well, today we're going to dig into that. We're going to look at the hidden architecture that really separates the teams that just throw money around from the ones that actually win.
I mean, this is the question, right? It's the one that keeps owners, coaches, you name it, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. You've done everything right. You got the star players, you hired the genius staff, you built these incredible facilities. On paper, you should be absolutely unbeatable. So, why does it all seem to just fall apart when it matters most?
And that right there, that's the heart of the paradox. You've got this huge, super frustrating gap between what you're putting in, all the money, all the effort, and what you're getting out on the scoreboard. And let's be clear, this isn't just about a bad game or some unlucky bounces. It's something way, way deeper.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's really break down this million-dollar paradox. Because it's not about not having enough money. No way. The real problem is something much more fundamental. It's all about how the organization is actually put together and how it's led.
And here's the big shift in thinking we need to make. See, high performance isn't something you can just go out and buy off the shelf. It has to be built. This whole idea is called the architecture of performance. And really, it just means that leadership and strategy have to create a rock-solid foundation, a foundation that lets all that talent and all those resources actually do their job and succeed.
So where does this architecture start to crumble? Well, the first major crack we see is something called the alignment gap. This is what happens when all the different departments in an organization are, well, not on the same page. They're basically working against each other, even when they think they're doing the right thing.
Okay, so just look at this. It really paints a picture of two completely different worlds inside a club. Over on the left, you've got silos. The coaches want one thing, the medical team is pushing for another, and the sports science folks are off in their own world speaking a totally different language. What does that lead to? Total confusion, wasted resources. But then, look at the right. That's synergy. Everyone's got one shared mission. Communication is crystal clear. They're planning ahead instead of just putting out fires. You got to imagine, for the players themselves, the difference between these two worlds is just night and day.
And that's really the bottom line here. Alignment isn't just some fluffy business buzzword. It's a real, tangible, competitive advantage. When you get everyone pulling in the same direction, performance stops being a surprise. It becomes predictable.
Okay, so let's say you get your alignment figured out. Everyone's on the same page. You'd think you're golden, right? Well, not so fast. There's another much more human thing that can blow the whole thing up. A breakdown in trust. And that brings us to our second big problem, the trust gap. Now this quote, this one is so telling. You have a head coach, right? He's got all this amazing cutting-edge GPS tech at his fingertips, and he straight up admits he ignores the data. And why? Simple. He didn't trust it. He felt like it just didn't line up with what he was seeing with his own two eyes on the field. That one little comment, man, that shows you a huge crack in the very foundation of the team.
And it's like a domino effect. Once that trust starts to go, everything else follows. Coaches start questioning the data, the medical staff starts wondering if a player is really injured, every department puts up walls and gets defensive. Decision-making slows to a crawl, and pretty soon, any real progress just stops.
So how do you fix it? The answer is creating a culture of total transparency, where information isn't hoarded, it flows. It's about building a shared language, you know? So the coach, the doctor, the data analyst, they're all looking at the same picture, the same reality. You rebuild that trust and boom, you unlock that performance you've been looking for.
All right, so we've got an alignment gap and we've got a trust gap, but you have to ask, what's causing them? What's the root of the problem? Well, that brings us to the biggest factor of them all, the leadership blind spot.
This blind spot is what creates something called the ROI gap. Think about it. Leaders are looking at the books, they see millions and millions being spent on new tech, on staff, but they can't draw a straight line from that spending to actual results on the field. You know, things like keeping players healthier or winning by a bigger margin. And when that connection is broken, all that spending starts to feel like just another cost, instead of what it should be, a competitive advantage.
And this is the absolute core of the issue. The leadership gap, it's really a failure of vision. It's what happens when leaders see their organization as just a bunch of separate pieces, not as one single interconnected system. They're busy managing the parts, but they completely forget to lead the whole thing.
And look how that failure cascades down. It always starts at the top with no clear vision. That trickles down and suddenly everyone's just reacting to problems, constantly putting out fires.
Then what happens? Your best people get fed up and they leave. So you've got this revolving door of staff, and eventually all that instability hits the players, and you see it where it hurts most, on the field.
Okay, so if a breakdown in leadership is the real root cause of all this, it stands to reason that better leadership has to be the solution. So let's talk about how we can actually connect the dots and start fixing this broken architecture.
And this is so important to understand. A leader's job isn't just to manage the budget or sign the next star player. No. Leadership is the active force that takes all the chaos of an organization and transforms it into crystal clear strategic focus.
This is what great leadership actually does. It connects all the smart people in the room, it gives them a shared mission, which closes that alignment gap we talked about, it builds trust through transparency, which closes the trust gap, it gives every single person a sense of purpose, and that's how you turn a collection of talented individuals into a real, unified team. So when you boil it all down, this is the message. You simply cannot throw money at a problem and expect to win a championship. It just doesn't work that way. True, lasting high performance, well, it's like building a skyscraper. It's an architectural project. It has to be designed, built, and looked after with real intention.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. And it doesn't matter if you're in sports or in business. Take a hard look at your own organization, at your team. Is your leadership just managing the pieces, or are they the ones actively connecting the dots? Because the answer to that question, well, that could be the real difference between winning and losing.